these flippable cell phones, outside of Samsung, they always interest me. Because, again, they always have different ways to look very unique. And that's exactly what we see here from Nubia Flip 2. Or, I guess it's Nubia Flip 2. This is their brand new flippable cell phone. And it's definitely interesting. Kind of looks a little bit like Oppo's flippable cell phone, their clamshell cell phone. This is the second generation, by the way, which looks nothing like the first generation, which I find kind of funny. We see this with the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Looks pretty much nothing like the Pixel Fold 1. Companies do this all the time. But it's this idea of, and again, most flippable cell phones nowadays, it's how big of a display can we put on the outside of the phone to accumulate you not having to open up the cell phone, right? This is, again, most of the outside display, except they do have the camera sensor and camera modules on the left, while the right side is this kind of more long, narrow type display. Which, again, you know, this is not the first company to do this, and this is kind of just what we see out of flippable phones nowadays. You either you completely commit and you go the whole display, or you go just a part of the display. Now, this is kind of getting more into what we're going to see about these flippable phones moving forward, is we're now getting to a point where these are maxed out. You know, most flippable phones nowadays are either come with 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. I don't know if there's a 16 variant, there probably is, but it's either 4 or 8 gigabytes, or 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is very comparable to most flagship phones, / most, you know, even foldable cell phones with 12 or 16. The real big thing for these flippable cell phones comes down now is to battery, because outside of battery, they're pretty much the same across the board. And let's say you live in China, right? Or you live in a European country close to China, or South Korea maybe. The problem is, you know, America, if you live in the United States, you only get a certain selection of flippable cell phones. You got Motorola, you got Samsung, and that's really it. Samsung and Motorola. If you live in China, you get all of these cell phones. You get Nubia, you get Tecno, you get Oppo, you get Huawei, you know, you get Samsung, you get all of them. And that's why, again, it's like we're getting to a point now, because all these cell phones we see right now, these flippable cell phones, eventually, some will go international, some will eventually will, but most of them will not. And most of them, again, just overcrowds this industry in China, which, again, most of them look exactly the same, and they're mostly maxed out. So the only difference would be you either go cheaper, a bigger battery, or that's pretty much it. You're not getting above 144 hertz inside display. You can't claim any better, you know, foldable display technology in reality. I mean, you could say the crease is less. That could be a selling point. But there's really just so... Again, it's like even foldable phones to a certain degree. But flippable cell phones, like foldable cell phones, you could always technically make bigger. Like, for example, now Samsung, rumors are they're going to make the Z Fold 7 very similar to the Z Fold 6 Special Edition. 8-inch inside display, good outside display. You can always make that bigger and bigger and bigger. You can always make it thinner, too. But for flippable cell phones, you're kind of at your peak. Like, there's not much more you're going to add to them. You're not going to make them too much more thinner, because you can't. You're not going to make it too much bigger of a display, because then it becomes uncomfortable to hold. The outside cameras maybe, but there's only so much room to really put a good camera system in there. Plus, most people want the outside display to be big. And then, again, battery. You want a great, crazy battery, but you also don't want a very thick, flippable cell phone. It is, again, we're at that point where I feel like we're kind of maxed out for flippable cell phones. We're kind of at a point where, you know, it's hard to imagine what else you could really change. And I envy Samsung because they're gonna try to make the Z Flip 7. I know they're doing this. They're doing the fan edition now, the Z Flip 6. But I wonder what they're gonna do with the Z Flip 7 because apparently it's supposed to have a bigger display. And I'm like, okay, bigger display. Why? I don't know. Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. See you guys in the next one.